It's a USC Wednesday night here on Mark Rogers TV, and that means Nick Dempsey dropping by from Conquest Chronicles to break down the granddaddy of them all. It's the Rose Bowl. Penn State taking on USC. We talked some Penn State offense last week, and we've got, Nick, two more shows to kind of break this thing down. So I want you to set us up with a USC offense against the Penn State defense. Of course, the Trojans figured out who should be playing quarterback, to the extent that Max Brown is now a Pitt Panther. So it was pretty decided that Sam Darnold's the guy, and probably should have been the guy from day one.
Yeah, I think you're right. He absolutely should have been the guy. But, you know, I wonder if the way he was worked in slowly, that might have been Helton's plan. But anyway, Penn State is they're coming back for some injuries on defense. So it's a little bit hard to fully diagnose them. But what they do well is that they are able to still get some pressure despite only having 4 down linemen. They don't really blitz a lot, but they get pressure from their 4 down linemen, which frees them up to drop, 6 or 7 back into coverage. And that really helps, especially against a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who has a bit of a tendency to force passes into coverage that maybe he shouldn't. And so when you're able to drop that many guys back, it's you can get Darnold to make some mistakes. So he's going to have to avoid that. But you can run on the Penn State defense, especially if you take it up the middle. So we're looking for Justin Davis, Ronald Jones, maybe even get Cedric Ware in there. Big rushing days. You know how Clay Helton loves his balance. He'll say it till he's blue in the face. So I would expect a big rushing day, similar to what they had against, say, Utah on the ground. They also didn't have the best stats-wise running game against Washington, but it was a very good rushing day for them. So I would expect USC to have a big running day. Now the question is, can they maintain possession? Can they not make the mistakes on offense? That's where it's going to be tricky if you're USC.
So since we're primarily talking to USC fans who have, rightfully so, for the last few years said, okay, we've got this first-rate depth chart on the first level, and then it's difficult from there because of the scholarship reductions and all the things that they face. Well, you're looking at a team that's pretty much looking back at you in the mirror, because they haven't been Penn State because of the same reasons that you haven't been quite USC in recent years, and probably even more so there at Penn State, because they were really gutted in a number of areas on this football team that they still haven't responded to. And what you allude to, Nick, is a defensive front that's decent in the front 4 that was really good last year. Actually, they were much better last year and lost those guys to the NFL. Carl Nassib led the nation in sacks, and he's playing for the Cleveland Browns right now. But when I say they've transitioned to the NFL, that comes with a disclaimer when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. But yes, they truly have some guys from that defensive front playing for other teams in the NFL too, Anthony Johnson and the like. But it's just a thin team, much like USC is. So they're much improved, but hey, they can't take hits, and they did early in the season. If you would have seen them play Pitt, if you would have seen them play Michigan, they lost their linebacking core against Michigan and got throttled. Not that they would have won that game, but they're in a better place right now defensively just because of getting guys healthy.
Yeah, this time off, I think, is more beneficial for Penn State than it is for USC, just because they need those guys back, and they have a lot of their schemes. I think they've had to adjust because they lost that linebacking core, so they can't really do the same things when your starting linebackers are just gone. But if those guys are back and they're healthy and they're 100%, maybe they can do a little more exotic of schemes, because most of their tape is just 4 down linemen trying to get pressure, 1 or 2 linebackers maybe seeing if the linebacker's going to, or if the quarterback's going to run, and then they just drop everybody and try to force you into underneath throws and keeping everything in front of them. With those guys back, though, I would expect perhaps some different looks defensively from the Penn State defense, which, again, with a mistake of hyper-talented quarterback like Sam Darnold, who is prone to make mistakes, Penn State's going to need that. They desperately needed the big mistakes to go their way against, say, Ohio State. A Wisconsin fumble helped them get back in the game, if I recall correctly. So you can't give a Penn State offense that can go deep and take deep shots and score from anywhere. You can't give them extra opportunities. And if the defense can confuse Darnold or force him to make some bad passes, those are those extra opportunities you just cannot give them.
Yeah, there's a reason USC is a substantial favorite in this game. They do have the better roster. Penn State's still recovering, as is USC, but even more so recovering to try to get to full strength. But they have fooled the odds makers all season, so let's not look past the possibility of an upset there in Pasadena.
I wouldn't at all.
Exactly. If you're looking at Penn State players, USC fans to look out for on defense, this name may be familiar, but don't get the wrong idea here. Marcus Allen, he's a safety for Penn State, tremendous player, led the team with 101 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. And he was the guy that blocked the kick against Ohio State that really sent this whole season in motion for Penn State in regards to recovery toward the Big Ten championship. So he's a really good player. Brandon Bell at linebacker, a tremendous linebacker. That when they're healthy at linebacker, Brandon Bell's a good one. Jason Cabinda's a good one. And Grant Haley, he's not going to wow you on the stat sheet, but he's the guy that's in the right place at the right time. So after Allen made the blocked kick, it was Haley who picked it up and ran for the touchdown to beat Ohio State. He's also the guy that stuffed Corey Clement on 4th and short with the game on the line when it looked like Wisconsin was going to pick up a first down to put themselves in the red zone to tie the game, and Grant Haley stopped him cold. Garrett Sickles, the guy that's going to rush the passer and the guy that's going to be featured there for Penn State with 13 tackles for loss. So I do think that USC, as you mentioned, Nick, a decided advantage on the ground with the talent that they have at running back and the offensive front that they have.
But I agree with you, obviously, but I will say this Penn State team in the fourth quarter, both sides of the ball, it's insane how good they are in the fourth quarter. I believe they're the best fourth quarter offense in the country, and at least in scoring. They're outscoring their opponents by a combined like 111 points on the year in just the fourth quarter. And scoring defense in the fourth quarter, I think they're the 12th best team. So if this game is even kind of close in the fourth quarter, if you'll recall, again, it was a bit fluky, but Ohio State was up by 2 touchdowns going into the fourth. Wisconsin, close game. All these games that went into the fourth quarter, you've got to put Penn State away early, or you got to have a hell of a fourth quarter yourselves, because this team really turns it on those last 15 minutes. And just, I don't know what it is they do differently, if it's just an attitude thing or momentum or what it is, but because they don't really switch anything up schematically. Just those final 15 minutes, man, those guys just absolutely refuse to lose top to bottom. So I think USC could probably run up a pretty good lead early, but I would not be surprised at all, particularly in the fourth quarter, if this Penn State team just grinds their way right back into it and makes it a great game.
Yeah, down 2 scores to Ohio State, 21-7, down 3 scores to Wisconsin, not in the fourth quarter, earlier in the game, right before halftime, but still 28-7 to Wisconsin, a team that doesn't blow leads normally. And even in the Pitt game that they eventually lost 42-39, that was a 28-7 game. They were down by 3 scores, and they scared the heck out of Pitt, and Trace McSorley was throwing the ball in the end zone to pull that one out when they were completely at one point just trounced on the ground by James Conner, and they recovered, and somehow the defense kind of ragtagged it together and played much better late in the game. So they've got something going there, and even you can understand it now that they've proven that, okay, adversity doesn't faze us. But before they proved that, you wonder what's with this team that they determined at some point that they're not going to be faced by deficits against really good teams.
Yeah, although that can kind of burn you if you start to get into the mentality of, well, we got this thing in the fourth quarter. That's when this game's won or lost. So I don't think that'll happen, but if you get off to a slow start and you start thinking, all right, we're down 35-7 or whatever, but we can come back into it, don't worry, that can kind of burn you. But you have to beat this team for a full 60 minutes. You just have to. You can't just beat them for 3 quarters or even 3.5 quarters. For a full 60 minutes, you have to be a better team. And that's what's made it so difficult to beat them, because even if, again, Ohio State won probably about 55 of those 60 minutes. Wisconsin was winning 40 to 45 minutes of a 60-minute football game. Game after game after game, they just keep grinding it out. So you got to beat them for all 60. But if you're Penn State, maybe make it a little easier on yourself and hang in there in the first half, so that when you do put up 30+ in the second half, it won't be out of desperation. I think that's key for Penn State. They got to come out strong to start, so they won't have to pull it off in the second half. But you got to beat Penn State for 60 minutes. If you don't, they will beat you.
Nick and I come your way every Wednesday night talking USC football. And, of course, it's been nothing but the Rose Bowl in the last few weeks on January 2nd. And we've got one more Wednesday to go before we get the Nittany Lions and the Trojans on the field. So we'll break down some who knows what we'll break down next week. But we will go full gamut, Penn State and USC. Nick Dempsey, Conquest Chronicles, each and every Wednesday night with me talking USC football. And in addition to that, I want to let you know that if you go to Mark Rogers TV Pac-12 on YouTube, we're posting videos all over the place and soon be diving into all the Pac-12 bowl games. So Nick's got some great posts there, and we got Shireen Ryan with Arizona football covered and a number of other teams headed your way. All right, Nick, it's always a good time. Appreciate the breakdown.
Absolutely, Mark. Anytime.